The overtime is really part of the struggle for labor. So it's not a new demand. The whole point about the 8-hour workday is what it implied was that 8 hours is what a normal human being needs to live a normal human life. Okay, and very soon, if one looks at sort of the way the trade union movement evolved its sort of understanding, it moved very quickly from the demand of the 8-hour working day to combine it with the demand for the minimum wage. So what it was defining was a wage for working 8 hours, which was the minimum any human being would require for sustenance. The moment you're working more than 8 hours, where's the question is compensation. Okay. So now there may be the odd instance where people actually are desirous of working because they make very much more money. I mean, but those are outliers. The fundamental issue is, the accepted principle is that people work 8 hours and they are compensated a minimum for that 8 hours, which must at least equal the monetary amount for sustenance at the subsistence level. Yes? Or ideally subsistence plus 1. I mean, that's the absolute rock bottom that any human being should live at. The moment you're working more than 8 hours, then you must be compensated for that. And I think the generally accepted norm is that when you work beyond 8 hours a day, you are paid double the wage for every subsequent hour. Yeah? So it's not a new demand. It's a demand effectively that goes back. The idea of 8 hours is to sort of say, I will work this much and no more. If I work more than that, then you will pay me more for it. So the two are, I think, historically linked. They're not either separate nor new. The point about, I think this came from two places, about manpower companies in one form or another. That's effectively what Karamat was saying, that when there's a factory with 600 workers, but only 111 of those workers in Ali enterprises were on the rolls of the company, the other 489 were coming in through contractors. So the contractor could be a standalone operator on the ground. The contractor could be a large manpower company operating in Sri Lanka in this case. It could be a global firm operating across hundreds of countries. There are manpower companies today that are global firms. And I think this is really and I don't think there's that much time, and I really think you should all go to the Red Phone, and these are issues which you can sort of break your head over as the rest of the workshop goes on. The whole idea of sort of indirect recruitment, like the security guard guarding this hall in the blue uniform, is about how labor has come to be revalorized, where the principal employer has gotten away with their responsibility and effectively passed that responsibility on to the next tier. If I can take that really for 1 minute, if I can take that one step further, if one thinks about the value of work as defined by a great thinker in the middle of the 19th century as between productive and unproductive work, and surpluses were only generated from productive work, all other work that was not surplus generating was unproductive work, which includes security services. There's actually somebody extracting a profit out of security services. So this is actually, when I say revalorization of labor, this is effectively what the late 20th century and the early 21st century has meant. Lastly, in terms of technicals, the idea that labor law, it's incorrect to say that labor law only covers those who engage in manual work or hard work. Yeah. The definition of workman, and I really would wish that Babu would come in, but I'm afraid there's no time, from the history of the Bangalore sewerage and water supply cases. The definition of who is a worker includes all people who do not have disciplinary powers over another employee in that same enterprise company, government department, so on and so forth. So technically, all managers who cannot show cause charges, so on and so forth, should ideally be unionized. It's our inability, and I think our West European comrades talk about white collar unionism. We've been relatively weak outside of the public sector in unionizing white collar. But technically there is a very wide scope for who is a worker, and I think this is something we've not really got to the. I mean, I think the trade union movement's been less successful in achieving this. Finally, the question of unity and whether Indian trade unions or workers stand up for instances such as Ali Enterprises. Yes, they do. They have done. I am sorry, I was thinking in my very tunnel vision right to freedom of association, so I didn't. It's only after I got here that I thought about what we've written up on accidents in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and tried to sort of leave a common thread with accidents in India. I wasn't thinking Factories Act or health and safety. One does sometimes think in tunnel visions at points. So I was only thinking about violations of, but there are those. I would sort of draw attention to the Pakistani media, that the Indian media is unlikely to cover anything of what we do. That's the nature of it, and it's not just any one organization, it's even when the entire sort of trade union comes together, the Indian media is more likely to blank it out than cover it. So your friends in Pakistan actually will not pick it up in the electronic newspapers or even in the electronic media reportage of what anybody does. And that's really, I think, the final point. Yes, I think wherever that came from about unity, that is unambiguously the need of the hour. As you said, when you go to unions, or I don't know in what capacity you do that, but I think the history of progressive forces, including the history of trade unions, not just in this country or in this subcontinent, but really across the world, has through much of the 20th century, or certainly for the second half, been one of divisions. And it's divisions in our context, actually divisions from the ground to the top. While where law is better codified, at least there are no divisions at the bottom, where the playing field is narrower, so to speak. And I think there's a need to change that. I think there's a lot of effort that a lot of people are making. That effort needs to be only greater. In that context, I welcome Karamat's opening statement of trying to pull people together across the subcontinent on the kinds of accidents we faced in the course of the last year. I think that's one of the many steps we need to take in that direction.
Thank you, Gautam.